Alright guys, welcome to this video called Faces of Violence. Guys, before I start this video off, I'm just going to tell y'all that if this is not what you into, go ahead and cut the video off, because I'm not going back and forth with anybody in the comment thread. I'm not going to do that, y'all. I'm not going to, make a judgment on if these women, brought this on themselves, or if these men are judging these men. I'm just going to make a response to the information that I read this morning. And I decided to, I just woke up this morning and I just decided to really just read, like, so what do what do stats say about domestic violence? And you guys remember a study, like long ago, maybe 2-3 years ago, that HBO did. HBO did a study, and that study just, it went viral. That that MMA guys, men that fight in MMA, they're 3 times more likely to beat their wives, than the NFL. And really, it's this sport, MMA, have more domestic violence in MMA, okay, than any other sport. Which that kind of makes sense, because these people, they fight with a lot of testosterone. They're angry. To me, that made sense. That stat made complete sense. But I want to talk about some of the stats that just kind of just stood out. I read a journal this morning. I think the NCB journal on domestic violence. I read that. And some of the stuff I didn't I wasn't buying. I didn't buy that. But some of the stuff I kind of did, because it made a lot of sense. And I'm explaining to y'all why I think it made sense. I read this one bit of information right here. It says that 86% of men, okay, like a company called Brookdale and Colleagues, they say that 86% of men who batter use alcohol, and 14% use cocaine. Now, I'm gonna say this through experience, okay? I had a kid that I used to train, and she, and it was like right around the holidays, about 2 years ago. And I said, okay, so y'all going out of town for Christmas? And she said, yes. Well, she said, yeah, I'm going out of town. And I said, so your mom and dad, they're gonna take you to the mountains? I was just striking up conversation because we had a long training day. And she said, well, yeah, me and my mom going. And I said, so what, your dad gonna stay home and play golf? And she said, well, if you want to know, I can't stand my daddy. I hate him. And I'm like, dang, why you hate him? And she didn't go into detail. She just said, because he drinks a lot. All he does is drink and get drunk, That's it. But, now that I think about that conversation, and I'm looking at this data, and also the data said that, men who drink, like, they get drunk, alcoholics, okay, they're more likely to beat their spouses. And that blew me away. And I think back on the conversation that me and one of my athletes had those years ago, and she may have been a victim of domestic abuse. I mean, her dad may have been hitting her and her mama, and it's real. I mean, it's possible. It's possible. I'm not saying her dad did, but it's really possible according to the numbers, and it makes sense. Guys, I want to know if y'all, most of y'all probably do remember, there was a study done by, it was a guy, he used to be a WWE wrestler. I can't remember the guy's name, but he did a study on Chris Benoit, and they actually studied his brain, and they looked at Chris Benoit's brain, and y'all know who Chris Benoit was, the crippler. He used to do all these like crazy acrobatic moves, man, and it was like a sight to see watching Chris Benoit. But Chris Benoit, he ended up, allegedly, they said that he massacred his family. Now, I got my own theories on that, but that's not the time or place for this video. Chris Benoit, massacred his family, according to sources. And when they looked at Chris Benoit's brain, they noticed that his brain had like a lot of lesions on his brain. Just a lot of holes in his brain, a lot of lesions and holes in his brain. And, they were trying to figure out, like, well, why does his brain have all this stuff on it? Well, it's because Chris Benoit was in a high contact sport. They were taking chair shots, jumping off of top ropes. And people say that wrestling is fake, man. Yeah, it's scripted, but what they do, those moves, those are real. Those people are actually, getting hurt, they're getting bruised, they're getting bumped. These people are being ran head first in the stair rails. These people are getting their heads smashed in the turnbuckles. And these people who wrestle, they're actually getting injuries. Well, okay, now you take a contact sport like mixed martial arts. You take a contact sport, well, the contact isn't scripted. It's not scripted, okay? You're going to get hit if you stand in there. And that's just how it is. It's not scripted. So, I can actually believe a lot of the stuff what's being reported here. And Chris Benoit also, he drank alcohol. So you tied alcohol plus combat sports, and you got a very destructive force. You got somebody, you're building a person that could possibly beat their spouse. But I want y'all to look. Now, these are not all the faces, okay? These are not all the faces. These are not everybody, that's in MMA that's been convicted of domestic disputes. It's a lot of fighters. It's a lot of men fighters, okay, who they've had domestic disputes. A lot of them. These are just some of the more popular fighters, okay, that they've actually had this kind of thing happen to them, or they've done this kind of thing. And, there's even some fighters that, they've killed their spouse. Now not on this, well, the guy on the bottom here, this guy on the bottom, beside Greg Hardy, he killed two people. But man, these guys, when they beat their spouses, these MMA fighters, they don't just beat them up. I'm talking about they brutally damage these women. And these are some of the faces. And I'm not saying that, a person that abuses their wife, I'm not saying that they don't deserve a second chance to get it right. I think everybody deserves a second chance to get it right. I think everybody does. Okay? I think they do. But I found some information that was very, very, like, it blew me away. It completely blew me away when these guys, they go to get rehab, and because when you go to jail for that, most judges, they're going to order you, that you got to go to rehab. And it's part of your conditions, because most of the time they get out on parole first, and then when they're out on parole, they go to a rehab program. And then one article in the journal said that it's like a sickness. It's like some kind of sickness. Domestic violence is a sickness, and it's an addiction. And these guys, if put in the same situation that triggered it the first time, these guys would more than likely do it again. And I was blown back. I'm like, damn, so these guys can get treatment. But let's talk about the treatment, okay? I want y'all to read this. Now, I found this bit of information, man, to be completely just mind-blowing. Like, many of the men, they says many men who batter, they drop out of the treatment program before it's done. And I start wondering why. Why do they do that? Why do these men drop out of the program before it's done? Because, actually, the men that complete treatment and they go through like a really lengthy treatment, like they've actually reported that a lot of these guys, they're actually successful. And a lot of the guys that complete treatment, they don't have any more incidences with domestic violence. But you get the guys that should stay in domestic violence treatment, they don't complete the program. And I start thinking to myself, why? And the dropout rates down at the bottom from 22 to 99%. Dude, that's a lot of people dropping out of domestic violence treatment. But I'm trying to wonder. But they said the reason why that these guys are dropping out of treatment is because the people in treatment, they're not motivated. They're not motivated. So I guess whatever the motivation needs to be, okay, for these guys to stop, beating women. But they weren't motivated to stay in because a lot of these guys didn't really think they had a problem. Now go figure. These guys, they beat their spouse, but a lot of these guys don't even think they need to be in the treatment programs with the other people that they see. Yeah, I'm like, I'll be damned. So you got guys just running around here, they doing their business, they beating their women, they may putting them in hell, and these guys don't even think they have a problem. Wow. But guys, that's insane. The dropout rates are from 22 to 99%. And the reasons, man, wow, man, wow. But if you keep reading this, let's read the whole thing. It says, many men who batter drop out of treatment before completion. Studies comparing program completers to dropouts have found higher rates of nonviolence among completers. So people that actually complete a program, more than likely they're not going to have another violence incident. But see, now I look at this and I take this, okay, so what about men who fight? I think that number with men who fight may be a little skewed. I think it may because they're in a sport where they have to have violence. They have to be violent in a sport. There is no, there is, in MMA, you can fight calmly, but you still have to inflict violence on another person. So part of that I agree with, and some of that I don't. And I think, maybe if they did a whole study of MMA fighters, I think they would find out that the numbers would be a lot lower. It'd be a lot lower. Even people in mixed martial arts that complete the program. But it's astonishing, man. What I mean, it's astonishing what these guys do and why they can't even, cure themselves, why they can't get help. But another bit of information I read. Okay, so it says evaluation of programs for men who batter show modest positive effects. Okay, but there is a dire need to develop empirically tested methods for motivating more men to seek treatment earlier and to stay the course of intervention. So, what they're saying here is that their men need to get help early. And the telltale signs, one telltale sign is alcoholism. Like, they say in this article that if a man is constantly drinking, then more than likely that's a precursor to a man beating a woman. And I also found out too, and I can't get all the stuff on the screen, I also found out that, most men, like I had read earlier, most men, they don't have any history of domestic violence. But with that though, they may not have a history of domestic violence with this particular partner, but this doesn't also include the incidences that the partner don't report. So there could be a lot of instances where, the partner don't even report it. And if it's not reported, they don't use it in study. Okay? So, we got to keep that in the forefront. All right? And some of these women, they've had incidences before. And the first time, and also, too, you look at how many women actually report it. I think they said that, I'm trying to remember, man, because I read so much stuff. But I think it was about 54% of women, when they have been abused the first time, the first time they don't even tell it. But do you know that number drastically changes to 79% if it happens a second time? They actually go and they report it, and they go start taking steps to, having the man restrained or getting him arrested. So, women, so that means that most of the, women are more likely to forgive a man. Guys, this is crazy. Like, they're likely to forgive a man, okay, that actually beat him. Like, they're likely to forgive him, give him another chance. But the men that they meet, though, and as I've been saying, the men that they meet, they don't have any prior records of domestic violence. Like, when they meet these guys, a lot of women, they're blindsided. They really don't know, okay, that these men are dangerous people. They don't know. They just think that they're falling in love with the person that they say they love. I mean, can you really look at a person and tell if they're an abuser? I know mugshots make people look more menacing, okay? I know mugshots do that. But can you really look at a person and tell if they're the kind of person that would beat their wife, beat their girlfriend? I mean, well, can you? And I think the answer, is no, you can't really tell. You can't tell. I mean, there are very, very nice women. There are nice women that people don't know that, really deep down, they're crazy. Like, you don't know. And I think as men, we've all had our share of crazy women. Okay, we've all had them, y'all. And none of us are no exceptions. Okay, we've all had. And, we go into a relationship and we think, okay, this is the one. But then, she started turning up doing some crazy stuff. And you think to yourself, how did I ever let myself get into this? I mean, as men, we've all, man, all of us, we've all been that route. Okay, we've been that route no matter what. But, men don't tolerate a lot of stuff. I noticed that too. I notice men that are in like crazy relationships, some men will stick around, but the majority of us, we see somebody crazy, man, or some woman wielding a knife, we getting the hell up out of that relationship. We out of there, okay? But chances are, if you have a daughter, and if they say, hey, I want to marry a fighter, or if I want to date a fighter, I think you might want to, maybe reconsider, allowing them to, or, if they still teenagers. I know if my daughter was a teenager at home, I wouldn't let her date. If she told me a guy was a fighter, I wouldn't do it. I would step in. I would intervene in that, and I would mess that up, because more than likely, man, if this person is a fighter, they're gonna end up beating their spouses. And guys, this not even the fighters. This not even the fighters. Like, dude, these are the fighters we know that's done been reported. I bet you there are a whole lot of fighters that's sitting there right now that's doing this, and we don't even know. Right up under our noses. We have no idea. We have no idea. And you know what? And the study said that the woman, the first time they don't report it because they don't want to break up the home. Amazing, man. But yeah, man, this pretty interesting, man, with all the stuff going on. Guys, we just definitely, man, for these women, man, I don't care. And I put my feelings aside for fighters. Even people like Andrea Lee, I put my feelings aside and I just look at them as women for right now. And man, Rachel Ostovich right. She right. People need to pray. People need to pray for us, and that's what she said. People need to pray for us. People talk about us, but they also need to pray for us. I'm done.